Well,
Hey everybody, this is Workforce Gaming. I'm Doug, along with Brad.
hey everybody.
And
Also, you took my hey everybody. That's how I've started every single one. And you always start ones with hi. You totally stole my line.
do I really?
I
I
think
probably stole
so.
it. I was told by a viewer that I need to be more expressive during the intro.
Was the viewer me or was it actually somebody
No, it
else?
was actually somebody else. I mean, it was a friend I know directly, so it doesn't really count.
Well, I've been telling you that for months.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to be a little more excited, so I just basically copied what you said. Anyway, this is Workforce Gaming, and today we are going to talk about Ratchet and Clank PS4 and the movie. Just to preface, I have played, just to kind of set up everything, I have played pretty much all of at least the mainline Ratchets, and then I played the remake. Brad has played the remake and pretty much only into the Nexus, and Brad also saw the movie. So I won't be able to talk too much about the movie, but I will be able to talk about the game. So kind of get right into this. I was surprised this game was as good as it was, and I love Ratchet and Clank.
I was shocked by this game. I don't know why I never bothered to play Ratchet and Clank, but damn, was this a good game. And if the other
Hmm.
ones are even half as good, I figured out what my next project is, and that's to go back and replay or play all of these.
Yeah, it's actually really cool. Like I love this game. First of all, it's really hard to say anything bad about it, but it is not the best Ratchet and Clank. Best Ratchet and Clank though is probably Crack in Time, but really that's only the best one if you have you should build that. You should play up to that game. You shouldn't just play Crack in Time and go like, well, that story didn't make any sense. The Crack in Time is probably the best in the series, followed by probably the third game, and then this one if I was going to do rankings. But still, like I was surprised, yeah, just because Ratchet is kind of for the past few years has been kind of it got kind of milked to death, and then and then it kind of disappeared for a while, and it kind of came back when it was coming back. My kind of impression was like, well, okay. I mean, Into the Nexus was I played a little bit of it. Wasn't a big fan. I didn't actually even finish Into the Nexus, so I was just a little hesitant. But Jesus, this game was good.
It feels like one of those things where you take some time away from something and you come
Yeah.
back and you just kind of got this renewed sense of what it should be.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I feel like that leads to these really polished games like this. Because, I mean, Into the Nexus was the last one, right? And that was what, 2012, 11?
Something. I mean, it was definitely near the end of the PS3's life cycle. I remember
Yeah.
there were some complaints like, oh, they should have just waited for PS4, and I still think they. I really hope they do like some sort of like remaster of it. So maybe I'll get around to playing it. But yeah, I mean, it's been a while. It's been a while. Like I think people are at least removed from it. So people who like the series haven't played one in a while, and people who are new to the series like, oh, what is this Ratchet and Clank stuff? I've heard about it, but I don't really know a lot about it.
Yeah. But I love this game. So, from somebody's perspective who hasn't played the original that this is a remake of,
Hmm.
I I loved it. I don't know. It made me feel like this is the type of game I wanted back when 3D platformers were like huge.
Hmm.
Like you've talked several times before about how at some point in my life somebody promised me games would look like Toy Story.
Yeah.
And
Oh
this
yeah, I talked
game
a lot
looks
about that with this game.
yeah, that was like your constant point. Every time we talked about this, you were like, "There someday there's gonna be a game that looks like Toy Story, and this is the one." And somebody told me in 1994 that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but no, this game was great. Like it
Mhm.
controlled perfectly. It felt like a 3D platformer done borderline perfectly. I'd very playing this game. I don't think I had any real complaints about gameplay, look, and everything. The story, I will say, made little to some sense.
Yeah.
I couldn't really tell you the motivations of what's going on other than somebody wants to blow up planets.
You know what? That is like literally it's kind of a weird like foot to start off on, but it is like the one blight on the game because like when you talk about this game, it's like, man, this game was awesome, and so like by me, it's like, oh, this was awesome, but the story is not good, and which actually really hurts because the story in Ratchet and Clank games is usually really good. So as a fan of the series, it's it felt very unfinished. It felt not unfinished is probably not the right word, but it just felt like it didn't make a lot of sense. Like as I was playing the game, I was like, I realized I don't know exactly what's going on. And I remember the game from the original. Like you really end up like not liking Drek. Drek is like a bad guy, and his whole plan they don't even really describe in the game until like really really late in the game, and it's sort of like an afterthought. And the whole thing is that he's taking apart planets and he's going to build his one planet together because his is all polluted. But it's like it seems like a real like it seems like the bad guy's motivations are really really muted throughout the entire game. You're not even really sure what he's doing. He's just a bad guy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that might be a difference between like you and me playing this is
Hmm.
the whole time I'm sitting there trying to figure out why is this guy a bad guy? Who is this guy? And you never really get a good sense of who these characters are in this.
Hmm.
I
What?
mean,
Hmm.
Ratchet obviously you have a good idea, but I just feel like the villains in general, him and Doctor Nefarious, like I feel like I was just kind of like, oh yeah, those are the bad guys because the game told me those are the bad guys.
Yeah, and it's so weird coming from like the Ratchet and Clank because I always felt the Ratchet and Clank games had really really strong characters, and it kind of and that is like the one as a Ratchet and Clank fan, there's some missing features too, but I didn't really mind because the features they did have were really really well done. It was really strange, like this game that is well known for having really well developed characters, really kind of interesting, well, not like amazing stories, but like stories that definitely carried you along. Like Crack in Time is super super story heavy, like it is the like culmination of basically 10 years of games, and it makes it has this amazing amazing story, and it really does feel satisfying like once you've played all the games up to that point. So the fact that this one like was kind of like struggling in story felt really strange for the series, and yeah, and like I can see why somebody new to the series would be lost because I was even lost. Like I played this game like it was I had bought Ratchet and Clank. Well, I didn't buy it. I got it as a Christmas present like when it first came out, so I knew what to expect. And even knowing what to expect, I was still confused because they don't really talk about any of the side characters. The relationship between Ratchet and Clank is a little bit different because in the original game, Ratchet didn't like Clank at all, which was kind of weird and probably something they wanted to fix. But it's kind of weird because like, oh, we're friends and now we're gonna go fight guys, and yeah, I don't even remember their motivation for going out to fight Drek
In this game or in the
in
original?
this one.
In this one, it's because, and I might be reading some of this in from the movie because the movie does a much better job with the story, which we'll
Hmm.
talk about later. It's because Clank was the defect at the robot factory, and he knew about their plan, so he was trying to do it, and he just happened to have bumped into Ratchet and told Ratchet that they needed to go see the Galactic Rangers,
Oh, okay,
and Ratchet was all about joining the Galactic Rangers,
okay. I guess that makes more sense then.
and then he joined the Galactic Rangers.
Yeah, and I don't know. It felt really weird because like it felt unfocused, which is like strange for like a kids game. Like you can say whatever you want about a kids game story. Normally, it's focused though. Like you
Yeah,
have a very clear goal. The
this
bad
guy's
guys.
bad. Go get him.
Yeah, but I mean, they give you like some motivation for the character and stuff like that. But I mean, besides the story, like getting away from the story, just the game. You kind of talked about a little bit before. I was surprised how well this game played for how well it looked because I think there's a lot of games when you play when a game looks really really good, you're gonna like okay, there's gonna be some sort of sacrifices to gameplay, and it
The
felt.
Order.
Ah, I hate when people rag on that game. I feel bad for that game. It's such a cool. It's such a cool setting. Um, but this game like it felt like I was surprised that it felt like there was like almost literally no like it felt like a crappier looking game that played really well, but also just happened to look like a Pixar movie. And I was shocked at how well it played and how well it looked. And it actually did feel like it did look like a Pixar movie, which kind of
Oh
shocked
yeah.
me because I had been like leading up that whole time. I was like, it looks like a Pixar movie, but when you actually play, it's like, damn, unless you got a real eye for that stuff, it looks that good.
Yeah, and I think I get what you're saying because a lot of times we come in with this feeling of a game's going to do one thing well,
Yeah.
and it's very rare that we get a game like this where not only is it gorgeous, but it also plays well. Because I feel like a lot of times you kind of got the big three of like graphics, gameplay, and story, and
Yeah.
your game might hit one of those, or most games are kind of built around one piece of that. Whereas this feels like a game, and it's pretty rare. I feel like that really nails two out of the three and almost two and a half. The story. I feel like there's a good story in there. It's just not told in the best way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's what really elevates this game is that it hits high on multiple points, and I don't feel like you get that. You've got games like The Order to this day is one of the prettiest games I've ever played.
Yeah.
But the gameplay not so great. The story's not great, but the setting and the environments are awesome. So
Mhm.
you've got that one piece, and then you've got other games where it's okay. This gameplay is amazing, but it kind of looks like they took a hit on the graphics to get
Yeah.
there, and they didn't really have a story behind it, but it plays really well. So I feel like that's what really elevates this in my book is it has everything.
Mhm.
Like the story, we're kind of knocking the story. I do feel like you said, there's a good story hidden in here.
Yeah.
It's just there's some narrative flaws in the way it's told, and they don't necessarily go
Mhm.
into the specifics of it enough. Which again, seeing the movie is definitely a different thing.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to me how good this game is, and I really hope that not only is this the start of okay, we're gonna make more Ratchet and Clanks, but man, do I miss 3D platformers.
Yeah, yeah, and I was actually really hesitant at first because like I was a bit miffed that they were kind of like rebooting Ratchet and Clank because the story was like I need to finish up into the Nexus because apparently it does conclude pretty well the PS3 trilogy, but it felt like there had been like decades of games leading to a certain point, and I was a little disappointed that like okay we're gonna trash all that and then reboot the game. But as a fan of the series, the reboot actually does a really good job of connecting to the PS3 games. So the PS2 games, if you play the PS3 trilogy, they feel much more separate than the PS2 trilogies, especially like in Ratchet and Clank's relationship, characters. But this one actually it kind of brought in all those kind of cool characters and cool things that were in the PS3 games, and then they brought them to like the reboot. So it makes it feel like the original games fit better into the PS3 trilogy. Like one of the things that, like they mentioned it quite a few times to the Quest for Booty Pirates. They make a few references to Crack in Time, where like they make a lot of little fun references to the rest of the series. Trying to think ones off the top of my head. When Quark denies him from being a ranger, he says like, "Oh, you're messing with the time space continuum." He's like, "Oh, that's a long story," and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of neat." Some of the other ones like they'll have like wanted poster for the pirates. There's a part where Quark says, "Oh, I beat up this guy," and it's the main baddie from Into the Nexus. So I like that they had all these like little drops and hints. So if you've played the games, you can see that they didn't throw everything out. They like still like they just basically made the original games, the original universe fit better with the PS3 games, which I was kind of surprised that they were doing that because I was expecting like all new everything. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool, and I like the games kind of have that throwback thing, and it's kind of that soft reboot idea of like, oh, we're rebooting it, but there's still some threads hanging there from the last one, which is cool.
yeah.
Um, what do you think the chances are if we get a continuation off this?
Oh, I mean, I don't. They were like literally shocked how well this thing sold was because there have
Yeah.
been like numerous reports of this thing being sold out because like Best Buys and stuff are only giving like 3 or 4 copies of it, and they
Mm-hmm.
got yeah. Oh yeah, you live in kind of like not nowhere, but you don't you don't live near like a metropolitan, so yeah, I heard you had a hard time getting it.
Yeah, I went into Best Buy not the day it came out. I think it was the day after. I was busy the Tuesday it came out, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going for it. Why not? And I went
Hmm.
on the Wednesday, and I literally talked to the guy. I was like, do you have this at this Best Buy? He went, no. I'm pretty sure we didn't think anybody was planning on buying this, so we got 3 copies in.
Yeah,
Let me look in the computer, and the nearest one was another like 45 minutes or hour from where I was at. So, which was multiple Best Buys in between. But yeah, I don't know. It was just like one of those things where it's like I could see why they wouldn't expect this to do great.
yeah,
And I'm really curious to see if you look at this whole month of April reboot of Ratchet and Clank, when you look at the movie, you look at the game, like what were Sony's projections for what this all was going to do, and what did this come out doing? Because I know the
yeah.
game did crazy good. I don't know how the movie's done. It's only been out for a weekend now,
I
but
don't even I probably don't even want I'm sure it's gonna be bad. I'm sure it's gonna be really bad. I'm sure it's gonna be like really, really bad. But yeah, no, the game actually one of the things that Jay Stevenson is the guy who is actually the community manager for Insomniac. He was saying digital sales were like crazy, crazy high, and it was because people couldn't buy it in stores, but they did have a digital version like available. I think the $40 price point really helped it as well. I was kind of thinking about this, like, would I have paid $60 for this game? Probably not. I probably would. I think at this our tone would have been a little bit different if this was $20 more. But for whatever that was, that $20 that like is $20 cheaper. Like, yeah, of course it's worth $40. Like, why wouldn't you pay $40 for this game? It's absolutely worth. But it was just like a little on the short side. So like, if I had paid $60 for it, because like right now I'm playing Dark Souls. I bought them the same day. I'm still playing Dark Souls 3. Um,
yeah.
and and it's not just just disregarding just length. I felt like that contained experience for $40 was worth $40, and I think they priced that game. I would say a little low, but I think that was in the right realm of like how to price that.
Well, and I think it brought in what they wanted. And I think it's this idea of we know, like, they knew this was going to be a great game, I feel like.
Yeah.
And you go, you know what? We know the way to get people to play this is to put this price tag on it. I guarantee you, I will not have played this game already if it was not $40.
Oh yeah, no, I
That was
think a
my
lot of people wouldn't have. A lot of
that
people.
was my tipping point. Is I was sitting here thinking, you know what? I'm curious about it, but
Mm.
well, $40. I mean, it's only $40. Like I'd pay $40 for that. Yeah, well, you know what? Let's go. Let's try it. $40. Why not? And I don't think I would have had that same conversation with myself if it's $60.
Yeah, and I can see it just like being like people just like I. This game would not have been if it wasn't as good as it was. This game would have just like floundered. I think a lot of people expect to be like, it's gonna be okay, And if the game was just okay, I probably would not have solo. But I think the word of mouth was just crazy on it. Um,
Yep.
and the reviews beforehand were like, I was shocked at the reviews. Um, for this is a good segue though. So you saw the movie. So this
Yes.
is this is a video game movie. This is a game based on the movie, based on the game. Ha ha ha. The game was really good, so I was kind of excited to see the movie. I haven't seen it yet. I plan on it. I was ready to see it day one, and then reviews hit. So you saw this, and
Yeah.
you're not a huge Ratchet and Clank fan, but I mean, how'd you like it?
It was all right. Yeah, it was all right. I think so. I just kind of went and saw it just because I didn't have anything better to do Saturday afternoon. So I just was like, yeah, screw it, why not? So my kind of thought was that it was okay. It's at like a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes, which about right.
Really?
Maybe a little low, but it's it's weird having played the game first because this is the first time I think, and the cutscenes in the game are just clips from the movie,
Yeah,
and you would never like. I feel like when games have tried to do that in the past, you get this weird sense of two different stories being told, of two different art styles, two different things, but the game itself is pretty enough that it blends with the cutscenes that are straight from this movie.
yeah.
And the movie, it's I think that might have like hindered it a little bit because I'm just you have those times where it's like, okay, the next 2 minutes I've already seen, so it's almost like
Yeah.
it feels like I'm rewatching parts of a movie that I like flipped through on TV,
Hmm.
which I'm never a big fan of. So that was kind of a little weird, but the movie was, I mean, it is scene for scene the game.
Okay.
It hits the same points. It felt like I was watching the movie for the second time almost, which is really weird. I've never had that experience before where just sitting there I was like I have seen this movie before.
I mean, but like the whole movie is supposed to like. Did they at least talk about like who the Ranger? Because like I felt like the Rangers were like super underdeveloped in the game. Like I didn't know who they were. They kind of like showed up for a level and then they just disappeared.
Yeah, and I feel like this is a much better like not necessarily like piece of this game, and it's kind of like we talked about this with Final Fantasy where it's that expanded universe. You've got the game and the game tells its self-contained story, but this expands on people. I mean, they spend 5 or 10 minutes just with the Rangers training and seeing Ratchet and Clank get introduced to the Rangers and seeing what the Rangers are all about.
Hmm.
You have they go into detail about Drek and his planet building idea, which from the game I was like, oh yeah, that's what he was trying to do. I kind of forgot about this. They talk about Nefarious and how Nefarious had different connections with the characters, and they do a much better job with story development. The story's paced out much better than the game,
Hmm.
and it made me understand more of what happened in the game just because there were those scenes in the games where I was like, what the who are the Galactic Rangers? Why are there only four of them? Why is this not like an army of people? What? I don't understand. And this kind of added to it, but
Do you? I mean, do you think the game would have? Because when I was hearing about this, because I heard that they were more developed. Would it been better if they had just like an hour and a half of cutscenes in the game? Like, could some of this still fit in the game, and the game would make more sense, or is it because
I
like some games play out because some of that plays out in gameplay, it doesn't really make sense in the context of the movie?
I feel like it would have been a much different game, and I feel like the game would have struggled from a lot of pacing just with the way, because I mean the movie is very front heavy.
Oh, okay.
There's in terms of like developing these characters. Who is Quark? Who is Ratchet? Where does Clank come from? There's a lot of it, so I feel like it would have been very front loaded if you just stuck all these interspliced with gameplay
Yeah.
to a like Metal Gear Solid level where it's like you play for 5 minutes, watch 20 minutes,
Yeah.
which I don't think would have served well in the Ratchet and Clank game. I think it would have been a great thing to kind of incorporate with it, but I think having it, go and be this major motion picture that they want to do, was a good idea. Overall, I mean, I being that you're a fan of Ratchet and Clank, I would go see it just because I'm sure there's some stuff in there that I missed. It was not something that I felt like walking out like, ugh, I just wasted it in an afternoon, wasted my $8.
Yeah.
It felt like, it was okay. It was an okay movie. I could see why people would not like it. I can see why people would like it. It definitely had a very kids movie feel to it. But again, there was that tone that I liked, and there was that Ratchet and Clank tone of kind of being a little sarcastic, kind of having these little like throwaway lines in there about random different things.
Yeah, I heard at the very least it did at least kind of feel like a Ratchet. Like it wasn't like it wasn't. I think a lot of video game movies like they stray way too far from the source material, where it feels like kind of like I heard that it felt closer to the source material and tone that it's like, okay, that was a Ratchet and Clank movie. That wasn't,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. The tone is spot on, and just I mean, even little things in my little experience with Ratchet, in my mind, if somebody were going to make a Ratchet and Clank movie, this would be it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, is the final product this great, magnificent masterpiece? Absolutely not. But again, I am of the belief that video games don't need to be made into movies.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those things where it shows why. Yes, you have some more character development. Yes, you can focus more on the story, but overall, sit down and play the game. It's the same story, but it's done better. It's more fun. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know. That was kind of my feeling. Is I felt like I played the game a second time without actually playing the game. I feel like it's kind of that quick recap of the story of what happened in those 8 hours of the game.
Gotcha. That's kind of. I mean, that's a little disappointing. I mean, I was just shocked. Like when it came out, it was like 15, 20, 30%. I was like, oh man. I mean, I don't know what it's at right now, but I was just actually I'm really curious. Like, so we're going to talk for just a little bit. I'm really curious because the weekend finished. Um, I'm really curious what the top box office was.
I know. At one point, I looked. I think on Saturday before I went and saw it, and I think it was like in eighth place or something like that.
Yeah. So right now it's at a 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. You can say all you want about Rotten. I know some people really don't like Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not a huge fan. Regardless of it, 19 is not good.
Yeah. I feel like you can for sure use that for like 0 to 30 is not good. I think
Yeah.
that's a pretty good indication.
And it only got 5 million or 4.9 million.
Yeah.
That's a bummer because I really hope that doesn't like stop them from wanting to make more Ratchet and Clanks because I'm curious like what the budget was because I'm sure they're factoring the cost of the game plus the movie and like trying to even and all add it all up at the end.
But I feel like if you factor how well the game performed, and I feel like with this movie, I mean, I don't feel like there was much promotion for it. I don't feel like it was like a heavy, you know what I mean? It wasn't like Civil War that comes out this week where it's like everywhere I look, I see Robert Downey Jr.'s face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was kind of one of those like, okay, yeah, it's coming out as a smaller release, kind of the first thing with this, but I don't know. I liked it. I like the idea of it.
I am gonna try to
hopefully-
absolutely get one of those stands. If they have a stand at a movie theater, I'm now gonna like think in the back of my head like how much can I spend for a cardboard Ratchet and Clank? Like, I might even see the movie, but man, a humongous Ratchet and Clank thing I might actually get. Sorry, continue.
I don't remember what I was saying, but go see it if you're curious about Ratchet and Clank. Go see it. It's worth the movie ticket.
Mhm.
You're not gonna love it. It's worth the movie ticket though.
Yeah. You should also go see Zootopia. That movie's amazing.
Zootopia is amazing. Go see Zootopia if you haven't gone see Zootopia.
I feel like there's like 4 other movies you should probably see before Ratchet and Clank. Although I am happy that it's at least like it's Ratchet and Clank. It's a Ratchet and Clank movie. Like the kid in me is more excited to see that than Jungle Book or even Captain America or anything else.
I will say, mentioning Zootopia, I think my issue with this feels like a kids movie from around the time the first Ratchet and Clank was released.
Oh,
Like if you think about like
Madagascar stuff.
not even like that, but just like first Shrek, where it's like it's good, but when you compare that with like Zootopia
Mm-hmm.
and the other animated movies that we have nowadays, like it definitely feels like it's 10 years behind.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. to
Oh,
point
bummer.
out.
So Sly Cooper
Yeah.
movie definitely not coming.
Well, no, never mind. Yeah, probably not. All right.
All right, so that was our review of Ratchet and Clank and the Ratchet and Clank movie. If you like what you heard, you can always follow us on Twitter at Workforce Gaming. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe to us on iTunes, basically whatever you're hearing my voice come out of, just click a little subscribe button. If you like it, I hate when people say like it, but like we actually like when we get like a little like. We don't get many likes, so when we get like 1 or 2, like, hey, we got a like.
Woo!
So if you actually got this far, I mean, you liked it enough to listen this far, so that's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say. All right. If you liked what you heard,
You
you
should
guys.
just write that I liked it and listen to the point where Doug said I should say something. You should comment that, or don't.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I kind of care.
We do care. We legit care.
I
We
care.
don't have enough views to like pretend like a single like. It's like, hey, someone likes us.
I cry myself to sleep over this every night.
Yeah. All right. See you guys next week.